Well, hello everyone. So in this video, from this video onwards, for a few videos, we are going to learn how to interact with APIs in Android application. Basically there are two libraries that we can use. One is Volley and other is Retrofit, and both have their own advantages. And I personally like Retrofit because I use Retrofit more than Volley. So first, we'll see how to use Volley and interact with database, and then we'll see how to use Retrofit for the same purpose as well. So here I have one database created called demo, and in which I have one table called user, and I have one line of data, one row in this table, and the field of data are ID, name, email, and password, and I have this one data inside it. And then I have created few APIs as well. This file dp.php is for database connection, and delete user is obviously an API for deleting user, which takes ID as the post request, and get user is obviously to fetch data from the database, insert is to submit data, and update is to update the data in database. So if I click on get users, it will give me a response in the JSON format. So here is one JSON object. The first field of that object is response. It is success, and second field is data, which is an JSON array basically, in which there will be multiple JSON objects. Here for now is I have only one row of data inside my database, so I have only one object inside this JSON array. So that's how the data is going to be when we fetch the data from the database. This is the format, basically the JSON format. And if you know how to play with JSON inside JSON in your application, how to uh, traverse through JSON data, I believe that you are ready to develop your own application, right? So it's a crucial part. Please do not skip anything. And before we start, I would like you to like this video and subscribe to my channel for similar kind of content. In this particular video, we are going to learn how to fetch data from the database, and in the upcoming videos, we'll see other database operations like how to create data, how to update and delete data. So please subscribe to the channel to get the notification of the upcoming videos, and stick to the content, and please keep learning, keep doing whatever you do, right? Keep coding every day. No matter what you coding, just keep coding every day. Consistency is a key. So anyway, let's start with an Android application. I have created a blank new project of Android, in which I have one activity, main activity, and it's a Kotlin file. Before we move further, we'll have to fetch the library dependency from uh, the internet to inside our build.gradle file. So let's go to Google again and search for Volley Android and Volley overview, the first link from the developer website. Just click on that, and if you scroll down, you can, by the way, read all this, and these are the benefits of Volley, what Volley offers basically. If you scroll down and copy this particular line, go to Android Studio again, open this build.gradle file, the module level, and paste that dependency here and sync the project. Okay, so before we move further, we need to do a couple of more changes. So let's go in our manifest file, we need to give internet permission, because without internet our application will not be able to fetch the data, right? So uses permission internet, and as I'm running my APIs on the local machine, and it is not it doesn't have a security certificate, like it is not running on HTTPS. In simpler words, it's running on HTTP. And if you're fetching data from any URL which has HTTP and which doesn't have HTTPS, you need to add one more line in this application tag, which is clear, uses clear text traffic, and give true to this, right? So yeah, these two changes: internet permission to interact with the online database, and uses clear text traffic to true, which is useful when you are fetching, when you are interacting with the URL which has HTTP, not HTTPS inside it, right? So that's it. We don't need to do anything else here. Now go to our main activity, and here we'll take a recycler view, because we'll fetch the data and show that data into our recycler view. So as a matter of fact, let's say let's take a swipe refresh layout. So when I swipe the screen, the recycler view will refresh itself. So if I want to use swipe refresh layout, you can see there is no tag suggestion for that swipe refresh layout, right? So again, we need to do one more dependency. We'll need one more dependency, so go to build.gradle file. This time we don't need to copy any dependency from the internet. Instead, just go to this icon which says project structure, click on that, and here go to this dependency tab, and inside all modules click on this plus, not the outside plus, just below this all dependency. Click on this plus sign and click on library dependency, and search here for swipe refresh layout. And we have to use this swipe refresh layout with Android X. So click on that and press OK. Apply, and it will build the Gradle. It will sync the Gradle project for us. And okay, so let the Gradle build itself, and it's done. That was quick. So let's close this now. We don't need it. And now let's take swipe refresh layout, match parent, and inside that we'll take Recyclerview, match parent, and ID will be RCV. Okay, and we'll need to give ID to this swipe refresh layout as well. So ID will be swipe refresh. Okay, now go to main activity.kt. Now let's take two global variables, one for swipe refresh layout and one for Recyclerview. Private var swipe refresh layout of type swipe refresh layout, and it will be late init var, because I'm not going to initialize it here. And another variable will be for Recyclerview, private late init var RCV of type Recyclerview. Now let's initialize this, and instead of doing it right inside this on create, I'm gonna create another function for that named init views, which is for initialize views. So init views, and inside this I'm going to write swipe refresh layout equals to find view by id r.id dot swipe refresh, and rcv equals to find view by id r.id.rcv. Now let's observe the data that we get in the form of json. Here's the api and we get basically 4 fields: id, name, email, and password. So we need to create a model class for this which contains these 4 fields. So let's go to the project and create another Kotlin file which will be the data class, and I'm gonna call it user model. And inside the constructor I'm gonna take val id of type string, val name of type string, and make sure you use the same word, same variable as it is in the database, right, as it is in the json object. So val email of type string and val password of type string. So we have our data class as well, so let's just close it because we don't need it anymore. Now let's create an adapter for our Recyclerview Kotlin file and rcv adapter, which will extend from Recyclerview dot adapter, and inside which we will have inner class my view holder, which takes item view as a parameter of type view, and which extends from, we'll have to import view here, it will extend from Recyclerview dot view holder, and it will take item view as an input parameter. And now adapter Recyclerview dot rcv adapter dot my view holder, and don't forget these 2 braces here, and we have to implement 3 methods here. So implement them on create view holder, on bind view holder, and get item count. And we are going to get a list of data, so val list of type array list of type user model. Here I'm using array list. Okay, you can use list as well. So in get item count we'll need to change list dot size, and we need to return it. And we now need to make a layout file for our Recyclerview item. So let's go to layout and create a new layout resource file. I'm gonna name it item layout. Now let's we are getting all fields in the form of text view, so just using text views here. Wrap content. I just want to display one on the name. I don't want to display anything else. Let's just display id as well, id and name. So I'm gonna give the id of first text view to id date item id, and hint sample text will be 1, and text size will be 20 dp, and text color will be black, so it is better visible on the screen. Another text view will be for name, so id of that text view will be item name. Text will be great developers, let me just write only gray because I have data data similar to gray developers in the database. So, and text size, let me just copy these two lines from here. And now we'll need to give constraint, and before that we need to change the height of this parent layout to wrap content, and go to design file, item ID, select that. Margin top will be 16, margin left will be 16 as well. Name ID, item name, and give constraint top and give margin top to 16, and give constraint to this item ID and give margin left to, okay, it is something is messed up. Okay, let's just go to text here and text view. Okay, change text view width and height to wrap content, so it behaves the way we want. And let me just give the constraint again to this ID, and okay, so this is the way our view will look like. And let me just put a little horizontal line under this. So to do that, we use view. Width will be match parent and height will be 1 dp, and background will be black, and we'll need to give constraint to that as well. So view, give constraint both side horizontally to parent, and drag that down here and give constraint. Okay, it's a bit tricky, so constraint top to bottom of this gray text view, and give margin as margin top as 8 dp. So I don't know if you can see this little line or not. Let me just zoom in. So the line will appear below this gray this two text view right here. So that's it. Now let me just close this layout file, and here in the RCP adapter we need to create a view. Item view equals to item ew equals to layout inflator dot from parent dot context dot inflate r dot layout dot item layout. The second parameter will be the root layout, which will be parent, and I don't want to attach to the root, so final parameter will be false, and we will return our inner class my view holder, and we'll give this view as a parameter to that. So yeah, that's it, and we'll implement on bind view holder later. I'm leaving it blank for now. So let's go to main activity.kt and let's fetch the data. For before that, we'll need an array list. So private var list of type array list, and will be the type of user model, and I'm gonna initialize it right here with a blank array list. Then we'll need an instance of the adapter class, so I'm also gonna create a variable for adapter class, private var rcv adapter equals to adapter rcv adapter, and I'm gonna pass this list to that adapter class. Then okay, that's it. We don't need anything else for now. and let's just create another function to fetch the data. I'm just gonna name it get data, and let's create another function for that. So now the Volley comes in the picture. So first thing we need is the URL. So now let's go to browser and see what URL we need to use. So to use this get user API, we need to use this URL of 192. This is the IP address of my local machine. This is the folder, and this is the actual API that we need to use, right? So if we go to this folder and if I click on any other APIs, this path will be same for every API, right? So I'm just gonna copy this one, and in Android I'm just going to make a constant private constant variable private base URL equals to paste that URL right here. So when I need to use a URL for different APIs, I'll just need to write the name of that API file at the end of this base URL. So like when I want to get the data from the database, I just make a variable of URL, a local variable, and I use this base URL and I concatenate the file name right here. The file name here in the case of get users is getusers.php. So I'm just gonna write that right here. So now we need to make two things. One is a request to the server, and another is request queue. Then we'll add that request in the request queue, and Volley will fetch the data. Volley will basically complete the operation, whatever, if it is fetching the data or if it is submitting the data. Volley will complete the operation for us. Two things: making a request and adding that request into request queue. So first we need a request queue, so let's make a variable for that. Request queue equals to Volley dot new request queue, and we just need to give context here as this. The another thing is request itself. So there are basically various kind of requests that we can make. One is string request, and then there is JSON object request, a JSON array request. So for now I'm just going to go with string request equals to string request, and inside which we'll need to pass 4 parameters. First will be the method. So we are getting the data from the database, so the method of the API will be get. So request dot sorry it's request of type Volley dot method dot get, and as a second parameter we need to pass this URL to that API that we created as a local variable. And as a third variable, actually we need an anonymous function, lambda function, not an anonymous function. We need a lambda function which will be response dot listener, which will listen to the response that we get from this API, and I'm just gonna rename it to response. And as the fourth and last parameter, we need to pass response dot error listener, which will listen to any error occur when making this request. So I'm gonna rename it to error. Now we don't need to do anything else, but we just need to add this string request to the request queue. So request queue dot add string request. Now if I lock the response that I get, here. I'm just gonna replace this tag with res and replace this message with response. And if I run this application and log this response, let's see what we actually get. Okay, so our application is run, and if I inspect the logcat here, we can see that we are getting the same JSON object that we saw in the browser. So now we have this JSON object in this response. Now we need to separate things from this JSON object. So let's do that first. So we are getting a JSON object. So let's take an instance of a JSON object. Let's make a variable JSON object equals to JSON object, and let's pass response inside it. And now we'll check if JSON object dot get, and the first part of that JSON object was response, and if this response is equals to success, then move further. Else, if it is not success, then just toast whatever the response that we get, and JSON object dot get response dot toString toast dot length short dot show. Now go back to if condition. So here now we'll need to traverse through this JSON object. Now if the first response is success, now we move to the second element of that JSON object, which is that JSON array of named which was named data. So now let's take a variable JSON array, and let's fetch that array from this JSON object dot get JSON array, and the name of that array was data. Now we'll loop through this array for I in 0 to JSON array dot length -1. Now here we'll get every item of this array. Let's take variable for id equals to JSON. Okay, well we first this is an array of JSON objects, so we need to fetch JSON object from that JSON array again. So let's take a JSON object variable again equals to JSON array dot get JSON object, and here we'll pass I here. Now let's see what happened here. If you go to browser again, we have this JSON object. We checked if this response is success. If this response is success, fetch this JSON array which has the name data, which we fetch JSON array. We fetch this JSON array from this JSON object of the name data. Now we are looping through this JSON array. For every element, I'm taking JSON object. Suppose we have multiple JSON objects, so when we loop through this array, we'll have a whole JSON object in this one I. So we got that one JSON object in this JO variable. Now what we want to do, we have this JSON object. Now we want to fetch now ID, name, email, and password from that. So let's take variable for ID equals to JSON object dot get, and we need to pass that key value here. Now same way for email equals to JSON object dot get email. Make sure you use the same name for email, ID, name, and password. Don't make any spelling mistakes. equals to geo.get name, and we are also fetching password equals to geo.get password. Now what we are going to do, we are going to take an instance of user model equals to user model, and we are going to pass this every bit of information, but we have id, name, email, and password as a form of string inside user model, so we need to convert this into string. Actually this is we are getting string already, but compiler doesn't know it, so we need to write toString ahead. So now we can pass id, then for the name we pass name, email, and password. Now we need to add this user object into the list that we created. So let's write list.add and pass this user object there itself. Now we need to initialize this Recyclerview. We have already initialized, by the way, so we need to perform a couple of things with Recyclerview. So rcv dot apply, we need to create a layout manager first, which will be a linear layout manager, and we will pass context of main activity. Then we need to set adapter equals to rcv adapter, and we are already passing list here in rcv adapter, so we don't need to do here as well. So yeah, that's it. We don't need to do anything else in this activity. Now go back to the rcv adapter. We are getting that list and data from there. Now inside inner class we need to have access to the text views from item layout. So well, name tb equals to item view dot find view by id of type text view, r.id dot item id, sorry, item name, it is for name. And the same way I'm gonna name another text view is idtv and item id here. Now we can access these two variables inside onBind view holder. So we are getting a list, so let's take a variable of to hold on data of one item equals to list and pass position here. Now we can use holder dot apply, and here we can set the id tv dot text equals to item dot id, and name tv dot text equals to item dot email. By the way, if you don't know how we are doing this Recyclerview, you can always refer to the Recyclerview video that I created. Name, here it is. Now let's run our application and see if the data is showing in the Recyclerview or not. There we go, we have the data inside our Recyclerview. If I add more data, all the data will be listed inside this Recyclerview. Now let's just create the on-click functionality here. Let's quickly do that. Let's create an interface my on-click listener, and I'm gonna create a function on click, and I'm going to pass position of type integer. Then we are going to get listener of type my on click listener, and here list, okay, inside init block item view dot set on click listener. I need adapter position equals to adapter position. Then we can access listener dot okay, why I'm not getting the reference of this? Okay, I forgot the keyword val here. So listener dot on click, and we can pass this position right here. Now go back to on main activity and extend implement my on click listener, and outside this method we can override another method which will be on click listener from that. And here we can toast dot make text this, and we can by the way toast something else then ID and name. Let's just toast email of that user, and toast dot length short dot show. Okay, now why it is still giving me some error? Okay, yeah, here we need to give reference to this as we are initializing we are getting the instance of RCB adapter class, and we need to pass this as a listener. So let's rerun our application and see if the on-click functionality works and pop up the email of the user or not. Okay, now if I click on this, it is popping up the email. So this is how basically you create this functionality. And one more thing, if you are wondering, we use swipeable refresh layout, but we haven't used that yet. If I swipe it down, it will refresh for us, but to as we can see, it is continuously loading without stopping. So to make it run in a better way, we need to write few lines of code. We need to get swipe refresh layout dot on swipe refresh, and we need to call on set on refresh listener. Yes, here it is, and we can get the data again to refresh the Recyclerview, and we need to stop the refreshing process. So to do that, we have to call swipe refresh layout dot is refreshing, and we need to set it to false. Now if I run, so now if I swipe it down and refresh, we'll get the data for us, and it will stop refreshing once the data is fetched, just like this. So yeah, let's just recap everything in short period of time what we did. We took a swipeable refresh layout, and inside which we got Recyclerview. I'm not gonna focus on how we implemented Recyclerview. Let's just focus on how we fetched the data. So we took this base URL, then inside get data method, we make the actual URL with the help of base URL. Then we created a request queue and a string request in which we gave 4 parameters. First is a method, post, get, put, or whatever method. Second is the URL that we created. Third is the response listener, and fourth is the error listener. And then we add that string request into this request queue. Now in this response, we first check if the response is success, or if it is not success, we were just toasting the response. If there is no data, we toast something else. And if then we got the JSON array from that JSON object of the response, and we loop through that JSON array, and we got this ID, email, username, and password values from that JSON array, JSON object, and then we add that object to the list, and inside Recyclerview adapter we got that list, and we set those list value to the text views that we created inside this item layout file. So Yeah, that's it. And let's just see if the response is not success, what happens. So if I delete this data, now the response will be different. And if I check in this, if I reload this here, it is giving me response there is no data inside it. So if I open the Android Studio and run the application, it will give us the toast that is no data. So that's how you get the response from if there is no data from the API. And that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next video, and please subscribe to this channel for similar content ahead, and please like this video. It will help me a lot and it will motivate me a lot to make videos like this. I'll see you guys in the next video.